I have new challenges. One of them is anxiety. My biggest challenge today, I have super high anxiety in the best way possible, I think, is um, just anxious to stay afloat. So my biggest challenge these days are the unknown. I have the 6,000 square foot building is going to come with its own rent payment that is going to come every day. I have 12 employees that are counting on me. I have everything I've ever asked for in the t-shirt world, the best machines, things like that. So there's nothing really holding me back besides myself, and that's a little bit scary. To be there's no crutch.
Hello and welcome to Something for Everybody. My name is Aaron Machbitz. Michael.
I'm
welcome to
Michael
the show.
Diaz. Thank you.
I'm excited to talk to you. Just met you 10 minutes ago,
Yeah.
which is the beauty of this podcast. But we follow each other on social media, and so I figured we could have a nice conversation about, I think we're going to explore a bunch of different topics today, including creativity, mental health, paintball, clothing labels, things like that.
Absolutely.
But first, the most important question I want to ask you is, how are you doing? Really, how are you doing?
Honestly, I'm doing really good. Yeah, I actually really love that question because I've actually, at least the last 6, 8 months, I've really grown into a person or into a life that I really love. So every day I wake up happy to get the day going. So doing well, man.
Awesome to hear. When was it not that way?
Oh, you want to get deep, off the rip. Yeah, no, that's cool. 2020, man, 2020 to 20, what are we, 23 now? About a year and a half after that, it took me granted, a lot of people, 2020 was tough. I struggled through some things. I learned a lot about myself. And then there was a time in there where I was growing and I was learning, and working on the things, doing the work, I guess, that I realized there was a problem, started doing the work. And then finally I just started to see that kind of fruition. And here we are.
Was this always the plan for you to be here, or just kind of happened?
As far as in my personal life, I would say so. Yeah. I mean, because I've always wanted to be successful in my own right, successful to me, or, happy with what I'm doing. So I believe that I would land here one day for sure.
What about the COVID time was so challenging for you?
Well, first of all, we have a business, we have a retail shop that closed down. Wasn't too big of a deal. Family, it's a family business. We definitely all worked through it. I was living with my grandfather. He had moved in with me about a year prior to that. So I had a year of hanging out with him, taking care of him. And unfortunately, I lost him to COVID right in the midst of it all. So that was tough for a number of reasons. Just it being COVID, we were locked in the house for 3 or 4 months. My family actually took over the business. I stayed at home completely, 24/7. And I traveled out once or twice, came back, and, he caught COVID. So unfortunately, I have no one really to blame but myself for that. So that was kind of one step of it. And the second was losing my best friend. The third of it was having someone die in my family. I've never had that happen until him. So yeah, just kind of all those together were pretty difficult.
Yeah, I can understand the business side of that, what you're talking about. Because when COVID hit, I was a full-time professional wrestler.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so if there's no fans, there's no shows.
Right.
So my whole life got switched and flipped upside down. That's sort of, now I look at it like 2 or 3 years later, oh, it was what needed to happen.
Absolutely.
But in the moment, I was like, I don't have a freaking job. How am I supposed to pay my bills? So I did the best I could. I got a job at Walmart, and having a job at Walmart allowed me to think, okay, what do I actually want to do? Where do I want to see my life in a couple years?
Gotcha.
And now this podcast is, a big part of that, and the other stuff that I'm doing outside of the podcast and sort of the mental health space
Awesome.
have become things that are my life. And I don't even wrestle anymore because I retired a year ago. But it's just so interesting how some of the worst experiences that we face with time, right, can turn out to be what we needed in our life.
Absolutely.
But in the midst of those painful experiences, you're not like, oh, I'm super grateful my grandpa died. I see the
Right.
light. No, like, fuck, it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
It's fucking awful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so what did death teach you about the preciousness of life?
Honestly, there were so many grateful things that I like, me even to getting to spend that year with him. And crazy enough, I do remember I'd be like riding around with him or whatever, and he'd make me laugh because he's one of the funniest person like I've ever met. Like, it's just out of control. And I'd look at him and I'd say like, man, I'm really gonna miss you when you were gone. Like, I would say that in my head, but not in like a morbid way. No, obviously I thought I had 5, 6, I don't know, however long, right? Because he's in pretty good health. So I thought, but so yeah, like, I was fortunate to never take those moments for granted. But what really hurt is that even though when he did pass, I wasn't ready. No matter how much I was like, it's going to happen one day. You know what I mean? Like, but it still just happened so suddenly. And so I still treat life very precious. Try to live in the moment. But as far like, I guess what I'm getting at is like, I kind of felt like I already knew that, but still so it just hurt more, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, to be so right about that it's going to suck. So I don't know. I haven't fully gotten there, I guess, like what I've learned from it, to be honest.
Well, it's still fresh.
Yeah.
3 years, 2 years, a year, all that's 5 years, whatever. That's still very early stages of sort of a grief journey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I lost someone very close to me in 2018, and you know, some days are just really bad. Mm-hmm. Some days are good. Some days and then some days it's like you think about, why didn't you think about that person? And then I'm like, oh, I feel guilty now because I didn't think about that person. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm living this beautiful life and they're not even alive. How could I be so happy? Mm-hmm. You know, so I've dealt with that emotion, and then thinking about, no, that person that I love would want me to feel this way, would want me to feel fulfilled and loved and joyous about the things I'm doing, with them sort of like being my guiding angel right here on my shoulder. Like, hey man, you're doing all right. Right. I see you. And that's cool to have that, but it takes a long time to get there, and not every day it feels like that. Right. Especially when it's someone who was a mentor or guide or just someone that you looked up to or loved. So death is always, it's just very tricky, man. Right. It's very tricky. But it's an inevitable part of life. Yes. Like, we're never going to escape it. And so I think at least thinking about that the people you love the most are going to die, not in a morbid sense like you were talking about and alluding to, but like in a real sense, like, yeah, the last time could be the last time. Mm-hmm. And I want to be here with you now in this moment because I cherish you. Mm-hmm. And then it also makes you think about the people that drain your energy. Right. Like, why am I in this room with this person who I don't really like, who doesn't see me for me? And have you experienced any sort of revelations like that just you want to get away from certain people because of that? Yeah, I would actually credit that to my kind of my recovery part. One thing I did was, because I am more of a social person, and I always had a lot of acquaintances, right? And then that's when I kind of realized I don't have like a whole lot of friends. Like, I have some friends, but my Instagram, I honestly went through and unfollowed literally every single person because I needed people to contact me for the nature of my business. But I just wanted to kind of stop caring about what other people were doing so I could focus. And, you know, it's pissed some people off, but like, I don't know, they weren't really friends. Some of my friends did ask me about it. Sure. And some just were very accepting they mentioned it, but they accepted. They didn't even ask. They just accepted that it was for a good reason, I guess. But so yeah, because that was kind of what I was thinking, was like, I'm giving a lot of energy to what these people are doing. And I was very caught up in that. How could I make these people happy, whether it be like hanging out with them or trying to remember things that they did? You know what I mean? Like, I was giving a lot of energy to that and never really receiving the same back. So that was one big step that I took, was to distance myself even in that manner, because I think even though people aren't necessarily next to you, you can still be feeling their energy through what they're doing on social media or different realms like that. So that helped a lot. Absolutely, who you follow on social media
Mm-hmm.
matters, right? Because it used to always be like the 5 people who you most surround yourself with will be the people, or be who you turn out to be.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like the 5 books you read, or the 5 podcasts you listen to, or the 150 people you follow on social media,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the stuff and the feed that you're curating and you're going to see. So if your feed is filled with positivity, or guidance, or love, or support, or it's filled with Instagram models and drama and all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff, both of those things are going to affect you one way or the other.
Correct.
And if I feel like if I'm friends with someone in a real life context, where I have their phone number and we
Mm-hmm.
text and I call them and we hang out, like following them on social media is just like, it's like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Some people feel different ways about that, but it's like, if I have a real relationship with you,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel the need to see everything on social, because we're having conversations in real life about what you're actually doing,
Mm-hmm.
not just what you're posting. I have the same nature of my business needs. Needs them not.
Right. It's tough. I hear you.
I choose to be on social media.
Yes.
Because it'll be better for the growth of my business.
It's the nature of the beast, and you always want to think you don't need it, but like, let's just make it easier,
But
so I get it.
Yeah. Because I would do these conversations
Mm-hmm.
when no one listened, because I did do them when no one listened.
Sure.
But I post them on the internet because I hope people do listen, and someone's going to resonate with 1 or 2 words that we say today.
Right.
And it's going to have an impact. So why not see how that can go?
Absolutely.
But if you can get to the point where you do something where you do it just because you love doing it, then, your longevity is much higher and your competitive advantage is much harder.
Absolutely. Consistency is like number one. And so that's what I was impressed by you saying you've been doing this for 3 years, not in any sense of that's a good amount of consistency, especially like if you do anything for 3 years, you're bound to be good at it. Like it doesn't matter what it is. So, and it's hard to do. It's hard to do anything every day, every week for that long. So yeah, kudos to you for sure.
Thank you. Let's get to sort of the business you run.
Okay.
Just give us a sort of a snapshot of what you do on a day-to-day basis.
On a day-to-day basis, I run AS Apparel, which is a wholesale t-shirt company. So anyone, businesses, schools, bulk printing, we do screen printing, embroidery, things like that. That's like my bread and butter, the things we focus on. And with that comes like little league teams. We do uniforms and helping them out. And then I have a retail business, an online retail business, XXV The Label, which is kind of a passion project that still is very encompassing of what we do, but has turned a profit recently. So that's been pretty fun to do that. And then I have a retail store where we sell merchandise, school spirit wear for the local schools here in Rockwall. So any like football, t-shirts, things like that to wear to the game, spirit wear, all, mugs, think like college bookstore, but for these 2 high schools we have here. So that's what I have.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's dive into XXC The Label.
Okay.
Why'd you start it? What's it about? What does it mean?
So XXV The Label, first and foremost, the XXV stands for 25, the Roman numerals, which has always been kind of my number. But I had an idea about 5 or 6 years ago to start it. It took me about 3 years to get it going. So I started about 2 years ago almost. But essentially, it's a branding company and an apparel company where, say you have a podcast like this one, we can take your logo, put it online, and as it sells, we pay you out. So we handle all the inventory, order fulfillment, customer service, things like that. So there's no upfront cost most of the time. And then, we just together market it. And as you sell t-shirts, you get paid. But really like the concept or like the motivation behind it was when I started playing paintball. I realized that you could be a professional at it and not make money, or basically to have a second job. Like it's not a very big sport. There's some that get paid pretty well, but there's all these guys with their, a brand, a name, that just didn't get to do anything with it. And if you take, me coming from the t-shirt world, you need at least $300-400 to like buy 48 t-shirts to sell. Then you have to carry 48 t-shirts around. Then you have to package it. And then to make, $12 a t-shirt, like profit, and then say 6 of them just lay there because they're smalls and no one bought them, like, you wasted part of your profit, and it's a headache. So no one does it. Right. So I tried to just alleviate all that, and I created a business model that does.
Amazing. You should get into independent professional wrestling.
I would love that, actually.
So I was on the independent scene, and this is what you just said is exactly what we do. We're like, okay, should I get 30 shirts? What sizes do I need to get? Because I need to take them to shows. I have a show here, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. How many will fit in my suitcase? Okay, do I need to ship them there?
Absolutely.
And then if I don't, more people buy larges because some wrestling fans are just a little bit bigger, but then there's some little kids that come to the show and they need smalls. How many should I get? Holy shit. Okay, maybe I'll get 30 shirts.
Yeah. And
I can barely afford 30 shirts because I'm getting paid $20 a show.
Right.
So I'm putting this, so hopefully that I make enough money to buy the shirts that I need to sell the shows, because that's where really all my profit is going to come from.
Yeah.
And then
it's tough.
Like, you're just starting out as a professional wrestler, and you like sort of have a name that you came up with. You don't really have a brand or a logo yet because you're sort of figuring it out.
Sure.
And then you make these shirts that are like sort of good quality because that's all you can afford. And then it's like, and then they don't sell out, and then you just have them there.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's very complicated. And then you start making more money, right, as a wrestler, and you start creating a brand and a name, and then you're like, this is my shirt, and everyone wants it. And now they have like pro wrestling tees where basically they do exactly what you do. You put your shirt up, they make a portion of the profit, and they sell out the shirt for you.
Gotcha.
And things like that. More companies are doing that.
But for the bigger names.
But for the bigger names, you have to have like a certain amount of following and this and that, or you can like pay a certain amount of dollars to get your thing in there.
Oh, okay.
So it works out better. But now it's also not that expensive to create a Shopify store.
Correct.
And then you can partner with like Printify, which is a free thing.
It's pretty Printful. Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. I like to just think that we do it with a little more care, and like not only care, but just a streetwear kind of edge to the entire look,
Right.
And like you're saying, I've heard of companies kind of like it. And what's good about something like that, you want to be on that website because all these people are going to go and look. And so fans that don't even know you might buy your t-shirt.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to create, but independently of, we have musicians, paintball players, all different, like artists, graphic designers even, right? Like I'll help graphic. So I want my shop to be cool to buy t-shirts where you shop once a month just to see what's on there, and you might not even follow an artist or whatever, but they still have a cool looking t-shirt. So I'm trying to build that collective creative community.
Yeah, I love that. I was looking at your Instagram and at your website, and all of the stuff is quite cool.
Thank you.
And are you creating your own stuff for that, or are you just trying to have other people create for the website?
I put both. So there, I'll help do or create like t-shirts for people. I'll create my own. Anything that just pretty much says just XXV, the label, is mine. But I do that for fun. Again, just because I like to create stuff that I like to wear. So I do that and add it to the website and hope my friends buy it or whoever, just to add to the collections. Again, because I don't want it to only be artists or I'm sorry, like I don't want it to only be fan driven. I want it to be a collective community, if that makes sense. So even some DJs, for example, will give me the freedom to create say they have a saying that says like, be the light or something. Like, and that's kind of their saying. I'll create a cool t-shirt that would just say that and doesn't necessarily plaster their name on it, just so that they can get the revenue from it, if that makes sense. So it's not, again, we give the recognition as far as like posting that it's their line and different things like that. But it's so that anyone will buy the t-shirt. So me adding my own designs and stuff on there, I feel helps with that.
That is, yes, I understand that completely, because like a wrestling shirt always had like the wrestlers.
Yeah.
And very few people who outside like a very niche market who love professional wrestling will wear like a shirt that's like.
Yeah, exactly.
But like exactly what you're saying, you just make it a cool shirt. And like a random person will be like, oh, that's a sweet shirt.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, it's from this dude. They're like, I don't really care. But this shirt is this cool, and I would wear this regularly. Right. And that's a fantastic idea. So I think that's great. So do you consider yourself a creative person?
No.
Why not?
No. So that's actually why it took me, I don't want to say why it took me so long to start, because I'm very business minded. I've been selling t-shirts I was at my retail shop since 2012, and I didn't do any of the artwork. My dad did it actually, but I would sell t-shirts and help them on paper what it was going to look like. I started, using color and things like that, but I did it a lot from my mind, right? And just like a blank proof, but then I would give it to my dad and he would create it into a t-shirt and I would see it. But it almost would come out like I, was envisioning, but I didn't have the skills or the tools to do it. So when I decided to start XXV, I thought it was going to be easy. I could get people to do the art for me and the photography and all of that, right? So yeah, I thought I was going to get all these people to do the website and things like that. And then it's just not feasible. So I started Shopify, really good at, not knowing anything. Like if you're going to start a website, go try it there because it's very user-friendly is what I should say. And somewhere in there, a lot of my life is on a whim, but somewhere in there, I went back to school. I was talking to a random guy and he told me about Wade College that was a business fashion program. So I went and checked it out. Sounded exactly like I wanted. Enrolled while I was doing all of this. I mean, this is at 29 years old. Like I went back to school. I didn't really finish the first time, but
we can touch on that.
Yeah. But I learned Photoshop in there, right? And so at that time, then I'm loving Photoshop. So it's the time I'm building my website. So then I start making mock-ups and then I start posting it. And then I thought I had everything ready. And, I called my photography friend and I was like, hey, last thing we've got to do is shoot this, right? And he did it for me. But then I could tell that was going to be tricky to get some, to him all the time. Luckily, great guy ended up teaching me photography. So now I do it a little bit, enough to get by. I just kind of have an eye for it. But yeah, so I can essentially do everything, but it's only pretty recent. And I think it's okay, but it's not what it could or should be and not where I plan to be, I guess.
I mean, yeah, like at the start of your business, you're going to have to be the person who wears all the hats.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like with this podcast, I have to do all of the things.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all of the things I want to do, but if the episode is going to get out,
right,
someone's got to do it.
Absolutely.
I have one guy my video guy, Ben,
mm-hmm.
But outside of that, it's just me,
mm-hmm.
Scheduling, emailing, editing, posting, all that stuff, whatever. So you get it, right?
Absolutely.
But at some point when the business actually is flourishing to a point where you have like extra funds or
mm-hmm.
whatever, at least in my case, then, okay, how can I allocate those funds to make everything a little bit more seamless, to leverage this a little bit? So have a small team so we can put out better products or better episodes or better clips or whatever the case
Absolutely.
may be. But at the beginning, you just got to figure it out. Like episode 1, I had no microphone, no camera stand. I had my buddy hold it and I just spoke.
That's awesome.
You just put it out.
Yeah,
you just do
that.
it. Whatever,
I like that.
Like you got to jump, right?
Right?
You don't know if you can fly unless you jump. And sometimes you might fall flat on your face.
Uh-huh.
Then you're like, all right, time to get back up. I'm the person who keeps on trying and trying and trying. And I think that's amazing.
Absolutely.
So, it's really cool that you've done all that stuff.
Yeah. And one thing I would add to that for any entrepreneur is it's hard to hire something that you don't know how to do. So even when you can kind of like, again, now that I can kind of do photography, I know when I'm talking to a person, like if they can do it or not, you know what I mean? Like kind of in that, and you have to be able to give direction in certain things, right. Especially if you want it done a certain way. I don't even say in a certain way, but like, you don't want to micromanage, but if you want it done in the macro, like you have to know how to do it at least a little bit. So that's helped.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because like if I'm going to have someone do something that I've never done,
mm-hmm.
I don't know really what
they could tell you anything and you'll be like, yeah, that sounds right. But you have no idea. And I've learned that because I've hired people without knowing how to do things. And I was like, never again.
That's so funny. What else have you learned about, starting a business, being an entrepreneur, life lessons?
In the business realm, yeah, I think, one big thing is finding people to talk about. Like, let's say like discussing money. Growing up, we never talked about how much people made or whatever. And not that you should, but I learned quickly that to have conversations, to not be afraid to have conversations. And it doesn't always come from like a pretentious place. When you're talking about how well your business is doing, it's only to make sure that you're on par with what you should be doing. And that's my opinion. So for example, like I was talking to my friend, I learned this talking to my friend down in Houston. He's a very successful paintball company retail paintball company, and he was just asking me numbers of like how I was doing per year. And I had no idea because I never really thought about the revenue I was making. And this is 5 or 6, 7 years ago. I didn't know how much money I was making in a year because I didn't think it mattered. And again, that might be like a duh, but someone who grew up just being not talking about those types of things, like kind of kept me in that shell, if that makes sense. So being able to have conversations about your business will help you to understand your business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's important to talk to like-minded individuals
Mm-hmm.
who like know sort of the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys, the struggles of starting your own thing
Mm-hmm.
and bootstrapping it all the way up.
Yeah, that's the number one thing, I think, is just be ready to work as well. So
yeah, how did you eventually know that you wanted to take the leap and to start XXV the label? Like, because it took you a few years. Was there a moment? Was there just a decision? Was there just a fuck it?
I think when I finally created that Shopify, how everything happened with my t-shirts or the school and stuff like that, I remember thinking like, wow, there's something I haven't thought of. And then I went to do it and it just fell into place, like one after another. I wasn't hitting any snags. I was hitting like, oh, I didn't know I had to do that, but I was able to do it like myself. I will say, like, again, XXV started as a passion project, so there wasn't a whole lot of risk involved. There was a lot of time involved. Granted, I was working here. Again, it's all in the same realm, but after hours, I was building a website. So there wasn't really a leap there, but I did know from the beginning XXV was a great business idea, one, and two, a great something that could really help people. So once I had those two things, there was nothing going to stop me from making XXV. That's why I did kind of hold on to it until I could go through with it, because I didn't want it to fail. So I needed all the tools. But even now, like first 4 or 5 months, like wasn't necessarily getting any sales, but I always said like, this isn't a bad idea, just not enough people have seen it. So there was times where I was like doing people's, that's how I got decent at graphic design, is because I kept doing people's artwork, posting online, and it wasn't selling because I didn't know about that. They didn't really have any followers or anything like that, but it didn't matter because I would get someone, put it online. They would get like 2 sales. Their mom and their dad bought a t-shirt, but I felt good because I made those 2 sales, So, I mean, I had like 100 sales in the first month, but they were probably had like 80 creatives, you know what I mean? So not really, like we've done well. And I've been blessed to like know some social media influencers or professional paintball players that do have a brand. And so it's been a mix of a lot of things. But yeah, the idea I think is great. I think it will be big. And honestly, I've dealt with pretty big manufacturers too, because we white label our services as well.
What does that mean?
So if you have, so there's a professional paintball team that we deal with. They sell a bunch of jerseys, masks, different things like that. They have a Shopify. I'm plugged in on the back end and I put t-shirts out. And when a t-shirt sells, I ship it. When a mask sells, they ship it. That's what Shopify allows you to do. So, but it's the same process as I'll put it online. They don't pay me until it sells. The difference is I charge them versus me paying them out. Now, I've dealt with a lot of pretty big global manufacturers doing this because it solves the issue of inventory. It solves the issue of figuring it out. Granted, I'll tell you, when you're buying on that scale, they buy like $6, $7, or probably like $8 a t-shirts. That's what they're paying. You're paying $17 with me, but you don't spend money until you make money. And that is worth so much to people. Because again, we're charging $17 a t-shirt, but you have to remember that's like us holding the inventory, printing it one at a time. So there's no bulk deal that printing, handling it to ship and shipping it off. So doing all of that is worth something, right? But you're still making, you charge $25 a shirt. Yeah, you're making $8, but it's literally $8 that you didn't spend $1 to get.
Right.
So big companies recognize that because they have warehouses full of t-shirts that never went to use or were smalls that nobody wanted or a design that just quite didn't hit as well as they thought. So trying to get rid of that, paying for storage to hold those t-shirts is tough. So yeah, that's how I know it was a good idea as well.
It's an amazing idea. And the quality of the shirt matters.
Yes.
Like if you're trying to have return customers and they get a shirt from you or from anyone, and they're like,
yeah,
it's like kind of itchy, and
especially on the Printful website, because they use a bunch of different manufacturers, so none of the quality is really controlled. So that's one. Yeah, we try to keep that.
And so if you're you're the person creating the stuff, you're like, you want people to see your stuff, look at it, it's cool, and then they get the shirt and it's exactly like they saw on the internet, they're going to be a return customer. So the little bit more money that you're spending is 100% worth it.
Absolutely.
Because you're creating, loyal fans to your companies. Like, I know that I bought this shirt, it's nice. The next one I buy is also going to be nice. And then you also are the person who cares about it the most. So you're looking at each individual order, maybe not when you have, zillion orders soon in your life, but each person that you hire is going to be in the same sort of mind space as you. Like, this is our business, this is what we do, we care about the people that we employ. And so it's all just, that's how you just run a conscious business.
Absolutely.
Instead of a business that's only for profit. Of course, businesses have to make money. That's the idea. But there can be a purpose, like you have on your website or on your Instagram, behind having a conscious business. Like, we care about this. It's creative first. It's about the artist, right? Because a lot of, like, you see in the music industry, like, the creative and the artist is not the top priority. Right. Like, labels just use and abuse these people. From what I understand, I've never been an artist. I've never been signed to a label, but from the people that I follow who are independent artists and the ones who are on a label, like, they're not, those are their songs and they don't have any usage of them. They created that art. Like, art is from the deep depths of your soul. Like, and you're just letting this person use it. And that's like, I don't know, it just bothers me a lot.
I mean, honestly, me too, because when I was involved early on in paintball, I had friends that were DJs. And so it actually is called XXV, the label, because it's like a record label where you sign to, so we even say that sometimes, like, sign to the creative. We don't always say it just to not scare some of the artists, you know what I mean? Because it's like, well, you're not really signing any, like, contracts. Like, I don't own anything, but we want to make it, like, exclusive and cool and things like that, right? But yeah, that's what I learned, that record labels would, like, receive someone's music, but what you're putting your music on there for is to spread the word. So, like, it's kind of a trade, but they obviously do some shady stuff as well. So, which is what I learned. But in the same concept of, let me receive your brand and show it to the world and then pay you. But it's making sure the artist gets paid first, right? Or gets the recognition, all of that first. Yeah. So,
but it's with you, it's more of a partnership rather than you work for me.
I tell people all the time, like, I don't make money unless you do. And so no one's going to work harder than me for you. You know what I mean? Because I need you to make money, because that's how I make money.
Exactly. Exactly. That's awesome. Well, congratulations so far on all the success and, many more.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
You mentioned paintball a few times. It's something I wanted to talk to you about. Tell me about paintball. Why when did you start playing it? Why paintball?
Yeah. That good stuff. I mean, have you ever played paintball, like, at all?
I played paintball once when I was in high school, and in the first 5 minutes, someone shot a paintball into my fingernail, and it blew off, and I never went back.
Yeah. So luckily that didn't happen my first time, but a lot like your first time. Like, when I tried it, I was like, this is a cool sport, right? Like, you get to shoot people, they shoot at you. The adrenaline is, like, I don't want to say unmatched, because I haven't played, I've played sports, but not, like, professionally, right? But the adrenaline's unmatched, of, like, these little balls you can't see flying at you, and, like, when it hits, like, it's going to hurt, right? But at the same time, you get to go shoot those people too. So to me, it's super fun. It's the best sport, and it's actually super strategic. It's like a chess match, especially at the higher levels. But in high school, I played a lot of the local stuff, and then I actually went off to college. That didn't really work out. Came back to work in the family business. Was actually thinking about joining the Air Force. Was pretty set to go. And I went out to the paintball field, and I happened to notice, like, in the field, like, these guys were training, and me playing sports knew that was organized, right? So I was like, I never heard of organized paintball. So I kind of just walked over there, and I was like, hey, what are y'all doing? And like, oh, we're training for, like, World Cup. I was like, what's that? And I was like, it's a tournament coming up in Florida. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then, like, yeah, we actually down a guy. And I was like, well, can I go? And they're like, do you play? And I was like, kinda. And so they're like, yeah, I guess. You have the money? And I took the money I had saved up, bought a plane ticket for, like, 3 weeks away, bought all the gear I needed, and went to the tournament. Well, so I decided to go, and then I practiced with them. And again, it was the most fun I've ever had, because it was organized. And then I went and played the tournament, and that was the most fun I've ever had. Like, literally just being in competition, playing a match with referees, everything that's good about competing. and we got dead last place. So no heroic story. Looking back, we should not have been in that division or anything like that. The whole team shouldn't have. Like, I don't know what they were doing, but yeah. But at the time, they were the coolest dudes I knew. So I came back from that out at official Forney, and literally trained every weekend. That was in October. It was the last tournament of the season. So November, December, January, February, I played every single weekend, running drills, learning the mechanics of the sport, playing in a field, shooting cones, doing things like that, like in order for tryouts the next year. And found a team, made it onto the team. And yeah, pretty much the rest is history, because I haven't missed a weekend of paintball since then almost. So
you play every weekend? Yeah,
these last 2 years have been this season, but yeah, I play every weekend. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
How like what is the league like? Is there a season?
Mm-hmm. So actually, right now we're in season. There's 5 tournaments a year on the national circuit. That's the main one. We just went to Florida 3 weeks ago. I took second at that one, so
nice.
That was pretty good feeling, even though we lost. But so there's 5 tournaments, and basically you get points by where you finish, and then it's a series. So whoever has the most points at the end of the series wins. And you get the series title. So
points are just by how many matches you win?
Yeah. Well, so what place you get. Okay. That's how you win the tournament series. But I guess a tournament, you get 4 prelim matches. You play 5. Paintball's played 5-on-5. When you shoot all the other guys, like you run down and there's a buzzer. You hit the buzzer, so you score a point. And there's a 15-minute match. Whoever scores the most points in the match wins. So like when you hit the buzzer, the time stops. You get dressed, you play again.
Okay.
So the score can be, 2-1, 5-4, something like that. Or there's a mercy rule. So if you go up 5 points, the match is over, which can happen.
Yeah.
So you play 4 prelim matches. We went 4-0 at this last one. And so then you play in a regular tournament on Sunday where we entered the quarters. And so you win or you lose, you go home basically. So we won 3 matches, made it to the finals, and then lost that one, but it was good.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Who knew?
You get that a lot. And they always like, well, I just thought it was in the woods. Like, no, it's an organized thing. I mean, and I don't even know how many people go, but it's a lot. I mean, there's a couple 100 teams. There's 20 pro teams all over the country, players from all over. So yeah.
Are there fans at these things?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Like watching the matches as they happen?
Mm-hmm. The pro field has grandstands for people to come in. It's actually online to gosports.com.
I would hope so.
Yeah. That's something that's been building. They're building up, like that's taken time, but that's where we're at in paintball, right? It's hard to watch. I'm not going to lie. Like the online's getting better with the camera angles, but watching it live can be difficult. But for someone who doesn't know paintball,
yeah.
But there are times where people get real up close and personal and shoot each other, so that's always exciting. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's fans, and then you can go. It's like a trade show. I had an XXV booth at this last one, selling T-shirts and kind of spreading awareness about who we are and what we do. So yeah, there's all kinds of vendors and food and things like that. It's a 3-day thing. So.
What sort of, if I'm allowed to ask, money or salary stuff is in paintball?
Where I'm at, none for me. We pay to play. I played on the pro level. We get a lot of sponsorships. Okay. Pros are real marketable, or how do you say, like market minded? So they help companies wear certain logos, do certain things. We're given a gun each year that you want to promote, and it's always a good gun for sure, but things like that. There are sometimes pro teams will have owners that are well off in other businesses outside that do it because they love it, or they used to have a kid on the team, things like that. And there's some money in it, and some of those would get paid. I think like the top player makes like 80 a season, something like that. But I mean, to shoot people and, isn't that bad of a deal, I think. Right. Because truthfully, you can have another job pretty comfortably.
You probably have enough time.
That's what I mean. Because you really only have to play on the weekends. Or, pros do practice, 4 or 5 times a week when that is their job, which just like any other pro. But I mean, there's so much that you can do because you're not really bound to like endorsement deals and stuff. There's not a whole lot of that in paintball right now, again, because it's not a very marketable sport. Just watching, but there's a lot of people trying to change that, honestly. And it's social media and stuff has been good for paintball, bringing awareness, and the short clips, so it allows people to watch, have been good. So I believe in, things honestly like that I'm doing will help pros make more money, and they'll make money outside of their salary per se.
Nice. Was your label well received at the thing you were just at?
Absolutely. This would be my second season doing it. And yeah, in paintball in general, it's been very well received,
awesome.
Which has been great. I printed again for a couple of different pro teams. Honestly, the number one pro team was super down for it, like immediately. I've been printing for them, and then honestly, just like paintball fans buying either my stuff or stuff, because I like to create graphic tees that don't look so like, man, he's wearing a whole bunch of sponsors on his shirt, right, or like if you wanted to wear one of my t-shirts to, out to dinner, right? It doesn't scream like, what does that guy do? Like all these bright colors. Yeah. I mean, paintball has a look, and I don't hate it on it at all, but I like to try to bring a little bit different like style to it. So
amazing. What have you learned from playing paintball that you've maybe utilized in your day-to-day life?
I'll tell you, I say this all the time, actually, because I started playing when I was 20. And that was one of the cool things I found out. When I went to the World Cup, I was like, oh, I can be a professional athlete, which I always wanted to do as a kid, but I always thought it'd be like soccer or baseball, but never was that good at all. It was a hope and a dream. But so that was like number one, right? I was like, yo, I can be a professional athlete starting at 20. I just got to try a little bit. But what I learned at that time was passion. I thought I liked soccer and baseball, which I did. I do. Still cool. But I didn't feel a passion. I thought I did again, but when I play paintball, I literally like eat, sleep, and I was working at my store Monday through Friday, and I was like, I need to get out of here to go like play,
Yeah.
And I was watching a lot of videos, talking to a lot of people. And so that was the first thing, was like, wow, this is what it feels like to really love something. And I feel that about my business now. So being able to like cultivate that and harness it was step one. Super glad. Step two was really just like doing anything you can set your mind to. That was the first time I've really like said, I'm going to go pro. And then I did, you know what I mean? So this is the first time I've ever really accomplished something like that. Since then I've done it, again, a handful of times. So just having that confidence and belief in yourself was good. I believe networking has changed my life, obviously, with like talking to people, becoming more business minded. And I do believe those are all things I learned in paintball. So like I took a game and like took life lessons out of it, which was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of sports in a nutshell. That's why it's so important for kids to play sports.
Absolutely.
And for us to encourage kids to play sports.
Absolutely.
And to have those challenges and those mistakes and those setbacks, and be like, okay, how do you deal with it? How do you put on your jersey or your uniform the next day, even though today's game went really, really badly? Because in life, how are you going to wake up the next morning, still, brush your teeth, get out of bed, put your shoes on, all that stuff, even though yesterday or the weeks before that have been really, really bad? Absolutely. How do we teach that? Because that's a skill that we can learn, because we have to be adaptable and we have to be flexible. Absolutely. And we have to be resilient, because life is, as hard as we talked about right at the start of this episode. Right. Death. Yeah. Like setbacks, COVID, random uncontrollable things. Right. Like pain. It's all going to happen. No one is immune to any of those things. Right. But we can armor ourselves. We can armor ourselves with the skills and tools to be able to recognize those situations, be like, okay, I can overcome this. Right. I've done it before. I can do it again. Yes, it might take me a little longer this time. It might be a little harder this time. I might need a little extra support this time, whether it be from friends or professionals, but I can do it. And that, is maybe as weird as that or hokey as it sounds, you can learn that from sports. Absolutely. I did. Yeah. I learned that from playing, 16 years of baseball. Nice. I'm trying to teach my kids that now as 14-year-olds. Like, you guys are going to strike out 4 or 5 times in a game. Yeah. You're going to get out 10 times. Okay. Yeah. Are you going to show up to the game the next day? Or you're just going to leave your stuff at home? Right. That's what, I use that comparison a lot, especially in paintball. Like you're saying baseball. Like one day someone told me, it was my high school baseball coach actually. He said, what's a good hitting average, right? And it was like 30%. So like, what does that mean? It's like you struck out 7 times, you hit the ball. And that's like some of the best in the league.
And I went, oh, wow. Like, so you're going to fail a lot more than you're going to hit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then what I always liked about baseball too, is like, you'd strike out in a game and you'd have to bat again and like wipe that off. And there were so many kids, especially when I was younger, that would like cry and you know what I mean? Like not hit the ball the next time, literally because they didn't hit it the first time, so kind of resetting that mentality. That same thing is in paintball, because after you play a point, you have 2 minutes to get ready. The difference is you just got shot in the mouth. It hurt, you know,
your fingernails got blown off.
Yeah. Something like that. Or, you know, the ref made a bad call and you have to calm down and go back out there with a clear head. Or vice versa. You win. You dunked on some kid, but now he's going to go do the same thing. He's going to clear his mind. So you have to come down and not get overzealous or overconfident and play to that next point. And I feel like you were talking about consistency. Like to me, you don't have to like hurt somebody every time you play paintball, but you just have to play at a certain level that you're just constant, very solid. So every day you just want to be solid. And then when you win one day at a time, by the end of the week, you dominated that week. But you can't go into it wanting to dominate the week, in my opinion. You just want to have to do what you're supposed to this day, and then tomorrow, same thing. And then it scores 100-0 before you know it.
One moment, one step, one day at a time.
Absolutely.
Why was college not for you?
I just wasn't good at it.
No?
So 2009, I graduated. I wanted to be an architect. High school, yes. I wanted to be.
I graduated 2010.
Oh, nice. Where'd you go?
Plano West.
Okay, I went to Heath.
Nice.
But so I graduated 2009 and I went to UTA. I wanted to be an architect real bad. I still like architecture. I like drawing. But more floor. Yeah, right. But doing the floor plans and stuff, I was in a college class. But man, it was just, I went to UT Arlington. It was just more school. I just wasn't good at it. Like just sitting in class, learning, reading. The economy crashed. My dad owned a construction business. He, started doing pretty rough on a whim. I'd like to just stop building, right? So on a whim, he bought screen printing machines and was like, let me go YouTube how to make a t-shirt. Did that. They tell me about it. They're like, hey, well, we don't have a lot of money for you to go to school anymore, whatever. Do you want to, actually, I don't even remember if they asked me, but I do remember distinctly taking the easy way out. I was like, this sucks anyways. So I'm going to be like, let me go help my family. And then, which they needed it, right? But I didn't endure the going through school. Granted, looking back, it's obviously a really good decision, but I gave up pretty easy on it, but I found I love t-shirts. And so here we are. So. And
then you decided to go back to school.
Yeah. Cause honestly, when I heard about this program, Wade College, it was a fashion school. I went in, and when you know exactly what they're talking about, it's way different, right? Like they're talking about supply chain management and things like that I knew, but I didn't know what supply chain management meant. I didn't know I was dealing with supply chain, but I was dealing with it every day.
Right.
And so when they start putting words, I'm like, oh, this makes sense. And yeah, learning Photoshop is a lot easier when you know how to design a t-shirt or you know what it should look like. Right. You just have to learn the commands. You have to learn the little skills. Doing inventory, right? Like learning stock turn and things like that to fill up a store. Way more interesting when you have a store, because I was learning stuff and literally going home and using it. So way different.
It was easily applicable.
Easily.
And you already had a passion and a purpose for it.
Absolutely.
So learning more is just more exciting at that point.
Absolutely. And I do like to talk to people to learn things instead of just reading. But yeah, so being able to talk or like hear someone and then go apply it immediately to something that, is honestly going to make me money as well. Like that's a bonus, So yeah, that was really cool.
Couple more questions for you.
Absolutely.
What's the biggest challenge that you're facing in your life right now? If there is any.
Oh, no, definitely. Hold on. So, I think because we were talking a little bit about the mental health stuff. That's why I'd love to get into that a little more. Is kind of what I was thinking, but that's still mental health for me is new. I have new challenges. One of them is anxiety. My biggest challenge today, I have super high anxiety in the best way possible. I think is just anxious to stay afloat. So my biggest challenge these days are the unknown. I have the 6,000 square foot building is going to come with its own rent payment that is going to come every day. I have 12 employees that are counting on me. I have everything I've ever asked for in the t-shirt world, you know, the best machines, things like that. So there's nothing really holding me back besides myself. And that's a little bit scary to be, there's no crutch. You know what I mean? Like I'm either going to fail and it's my fault, or we're going to win and it's my fault. So having this many people count on me and with no safety net is kind of my challenge these days, if that makes sense.
It's a bit scary.
It's a bit, yeah.
If it wasn't scary and if you weren't scared, that would be weird.
Correct. Which is why I say the anxiety is good, because it drives me to wake up and do what I'm supposed to do. And not everyone has that motivating factor.
Right. How are you managing it though? Because sometimes it can be very debilitating.
Truthfully, therapy and meds, 100%. And I'm an advocate for both. I don't think meds are for everyone. I think it took me a year of trying different ones, working closely with my doctor on changing medications changing dosages and stuff. But I am a believer in science and, you know, supplements in general. Granted, you still have to eat right, be healthy, but no matter what you do, you can always supplement protein when you're working out. You know what I mean? Sure. So I believe that is the same way for mental health. Again, just have to be cautious and do as they're prescribed, but they can be done well. But the biggest one is therapy. I go once a week. I've been going for almost 2 years now. And some days I don't really have much to talk about. So we get to talk about, you know, how to progress forward. If I'm being honest, sometimes it's more just a pat on the back to remind me to, you know, get out and keep doing what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. There's stressful weeks that he helps me break down. And then, especially in the beginning, but there's times where we start relating certain things that I'm feeling or that's happening to childhood stuff. Untangling things is what he likes to call it. And I believe that that's a thing 100%. And it's hard to describe or show how things are tangled up together. Like why you're feeling angry towards someone is due to an event. So not even a person a while back, until you go through it and then you can feel it separate. You can feel the weight lift off of you. And it's just kind of like, aha, that's what it is. So I highly encourage everyone, honestly, no matter how you're feeling. Because again, even when you're doing great, it's a good, unbiased, yes, you're doing a good job and this is what you should do. You know what I mean? So I highly encourage people to go once a week. If I could do it over again, no matter the cost it's something you should spend your money on is what I'm getting at. Like cost shouldn't be a factor because it's just like eating, like, you know, you have to do it in my opinion. And that's how strongly I feel about it now. So if I had to do it over, I would started it sooner and not that cost was ever a thing, but what I would say is cost, I think, is what people are scared of, but the stigma of, you go to therapy like you're crazy, or I don't want to go because I'm not crazy, you know? But again, it's like, do you have a personal trainer? Yeah, because he just knows how to help you lift weights, do it better. Do you have a coach? Yes, it's a mental coach. It's, you know, an unbiased look at things. So I guess this is where I should plug Sad Boy, one of my favorite brands. That's on XXV, the label. This guy who he's an artist, Chris Babb. I met him through physical therapy, actually. And he's a phenomenal artist. Comes out to me, funny story. He comes to me and he says, hey, I've heard about your brand. Like, do you want to maybe collab on a new brand? And I'm like, man, I was slammed at the time, you know? And I was like, yeah, we could talk about it. And then I'm giving them the spiel on how it works. And I was like, yeah, and if you ever need help with art, like, you know, we can do that as well. And he kind of just kindly, I'll never forget, he kindly shook his head and he was like, yeah, for sure. Come to find out a week later, like, he sends me his Instagram. The dude's a full blown artist, like makes money selling these amazing paintings. Right. And I asked him if like he wanted help, like designing stuff. I don't know, but he was super humble about it. And that just made me, I'll never forget that. How I was just like, dude, do you want help with art? And he's like, yeah, you know, we're fine. But, so yeah, anyways, but he had a super moving story about his friend just had committed suicide. And so now when you purchase the Sad Boy shirt, because we pay back to creatives, right?
Mm-hmm.
We actually give to the Christopher Barkley Foundation. That was his friend. He started that, or him and his friend started that in his name.
Right.
So that's the message behind that. And again, that all just timing thing, man, the way that hit and where it hit me and, you know, what I was dealing with. But the whole thing behind it is mental health, but specifically men's mental health is why it's called Sad Boy. And a lot of it's just releasing the stigma, starting the conversation. We want to create cool graphic t-shirts. He does a lot of the art, most of it. He has allowed me to create some stuff that, you know, is meaningful to me, and, you know, put the Sad Boy stuff on there. So, but the idea is to create cool graphic tees that you can wear out. And when people are like, what's Sad Boy or whatever it is, you kind of just mention, and you never know. We went to Uptown, did a little, we had a little booth out there that he set up. I was a little worried about selling streetwear, you know, in Uptown, but also I was nervous and all the kind of, will they like it? You know, things that come with doing something your first time. And it was very well received. We sold 40 shirts. We told people about Sad Boy. We had one lady come up and cry because she had just, you know, dealt with some different things. We had people that were buying it because it was cool. We had people that were buying it because it meant something, all different things. And seeing, because, you know, we're online, right? So I don't see a lot of that. Granted, people tell me that post about it, but it's not really the same thing. But seeing emotion behind it, I knew that we were doing the right thing for Sad Boy as well. And how that related to me again, that brand is going to be big. It will, for sure.
I love that. Well, that touches on my heart pretty deeply. You can see the hat I'm wearing. It says "You Are Loved." That's the mental health nonprofit that I started.
Nice.
Because I said earlier in 2018, I lost someone that I love. It was my sister who ended her own life. And so just having more people speak about these things, just in an open forum about how we feel, going to therapy, talking about our emotions, expressing love, being there for one another. I mean, it's the key to life. And it's not only important for us, it's important for everyone, just for our mental health and expressing ourselves as men, you know, because some of the messaging we hear and have been told is, you know, the opposite of that. And there's a place for toughness, right? There's a place for grit it and get it done. But there's also a place for asking for help and saying that you need help and saying that you're not feeling well or saying that you're stressed or you're overwhelmed or you can't handle this or you need some backup. And that's what our friends are for. And that's what, you know, messaging and t-shirts and all of this stuff is about. It's never just a t-shirt.
Right.
Like when I'm sure that guy or you are creating the t-shirt, there's like this intense love and passion putting to that shirt. Like if someone wears this, they're feeling my friend, they're feeling my sister and all of these things, right? It's so much deeper than clothing, but clothing is the vehicle for the change for some people, for me, for you.
Absolutely.
For Sad Boy. So thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like how do you deal with balancing the toughness with the sensitive? Does that make sense? Like, cause I think that's the hardest thing it was hard for me to grasp. So it's even harder to explain, like, to people that are confused by it. But how do you stay sensitive, but how do you be a man and do what you're supposed to do?
Because I know that there is 3 to 4 people in my life that I can be a soft teddy bear with. And so I can get out all of my emotions. I feel safe. I feel seen. I feel heard with those people. One being my girlfriend, another being my parents, and a few of my really close friends. Like I know that there's no judgment there from them ever. Like I can cry, and I have cried in front of them and say that I need this or that. I'm not feeling tough today. I'm feeling weak and I need your help. Can you lift me up to so you have to have those bit of people in your life.
Absolutely.
Where you can just sort of melt.
Right.
And then like in your day to day, that's where you have to be the person that you want to be.
Right.
Because you have to show up. Life needs you to show up. Your life needs you to be an active participant. And that's where you have to sort of get it together. But there's a space for you to be soft and vulnerable. Like if you have a therapist or you have a friend group, or you have communities, if you have a support system or an infrastructure, right? 1, 2, 3 people, it doesn't have to be a million.
Right.
1 or 2 where you can be soft and show yourself in true, authentic fashion And then in your life where you have to be the person, maybe for your kids or for your business or just for yourself, then you show up in that way. And you have to be able to toggle between that line dynamically. But that's what the best men that I have ever known do. And they do it, not perfectly, of course, because no one does it perfectly, but they do it to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
And that's why having a therapist or a group or anything like that, or a person helps you to be that way. Gotcha. So that person can see you in that light. My girlfriend sees me in that light all the time, and it brings us closer because she knows that in real life, if anything were like, not that is real life, but like in the world,
correct.
Like if someone were to be mean to her or attack her, like I'm fucking right there.
Yeah.
None of that shit.
Right.
And so there's just, that's at least how I've seen it. And that's how I encourage my young men, my 14-year-old boys to be. Like, we're safe here in this team. Yeah. Like after the game, we don't talk about what happened. Like you want to get upset, you want to be sad about the game. Like, great, let's get it out. But when we're in the game, we're in the fucking game. We're competing, we're getting after it, and we're bringing it on. Yeah. But when we're done with the game, let's talk. Let me care about you. Let's share our emotions and our feelings. Let's work through that. And so there's a place for both of those things, for our mental health, especially for men. Yeah,
that's awesome. And I think that whole message right there is important and is what needs to be talked. That's the things. I don't even know if it needs to be talked about as much as it needs to be shown.
Needs to be shown. 100%.
You know what I mean? Because talking about it is what I was getting at. Is kind of tough. Because one thing for me is like, I do have people, same thing, right? That I can be open to and like break down. But I also have people, I want to be that person that other people can do that to as well. Right. And it's usually not the same people. I don't know, like if you've noticed that, but one person that I talk to, they don't necessarily talk to, and it's not because they don't want to, it's just you kind of have that relationship.
Right.
But there are other people that open up to me that I don't necessarily open up to. So it's just kind of that balance. Like you're going to, passing it on kind of deal, paying it forward kind of deal I think is big in the mental health space.
Yeah. Was there a driver that led you to therapy, like an initial point, or was it just time?
Good question. Because how I kind of do anything is I think about it for a long time. I don't study something for like a month straight, right? A little pieces over 3 months per se, right? And I kind of learned about it, start paying attention to it. And I did tell my mom, I was like, and this was, I can't remember, I really can't remember if it was before my grandfather passed or not, but I was kind of like, hey, I think I need to go to therapy, and again, I come from a conservative family. That's not really talked about. I don't even want to put that on conservatives, but they're just more of my family is more of a gritty, wake up and do it. We made it through, so you can make it through type deal. Sure. Which is right in its own place, like you were saying. But anyways, so I was just like, I think I need to go. And my mom just kind of pushed it off. And that was okay, especially at the time. But my grandfather died. And I remember I was trying to deal with it like I dealt with everything, which was kind of ignoring it and being mentally strong, because I was very mentally strong, I felt. But that happened. I broke up with my girlfriend who lived with me for all of COVID. So we saw each other literally all the time, right? So I'm just saying I lost that companionship. 2 people that I saw literally every day went everywhere with me, right? Pat, girlfriend didn't die. She just left. But that happened. And my cousin who lived with me also left through its own kind of, but again, I was like, it's fine. These people, I blocked my girlfriend, whatever, or, ignored it is what I'm getting at. But like, she kind of disappeared. My cousin, whatever, he did what he has to do. But one day it just hit me, man. I was like, I'm not okay. And my body told me, you're not okay. I didn't sleep for like 2 days, 2 nights. I was down in Austin. I had a full-on mental breakdown. Like, it was bad. I actually got Ubered from Austin to Dallas, which was crazy, but my family picked me up, and I didn't sleep for 2 nights after that. I went to my first doctor, got some meds to sleep. It wasn't Xanax, but it was kind of like that in order to kind of bring me down. And then I don't have it anymore, but I've always had like an emergency like to kind of bring you down for the bad moments. And I always called it spiraling. I could feel myself spiraling, and I would just get in this like really clouded headspace where I felt lower than a lot of things, you know. I didn't feel above ground. And so I would do certain things to kind of bring myself back above ground. That was happening. And then once I got out of that, we're like, I'm not okay. Like this, we didn't know why, right? I mean, obviously all these things had happened, but I didn't understand. I went and saw a therapist, and honestly, I saw him for 3 or 4 times and it didn't work. I don't want to say it rudely, but I didn't respect him. Like I didn't feel like he either had the life experience or had the training to like teach me something, which we just didn't connect. Sure. And so that's all I'm getting at is like, that's okay. Not every therapist is for everybody. But one interesting thing that happened is I read on an Instagram, one of those little like posts about emotional trauma. And I didn't want to call what I went through traumatic. You know, I wasn't beaten. My parents didn't leave me, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't think it was traumatic. But something in that post, I remember sending it to my mom, and I was like, maybe I'm traumatized, you know? And so we went to a trauma specialist therapist, trauma specialty. And that's kind of what he specializes in. And he ended up helping me. And that's who I still see. Because even before that, one massive question that was always in my mind, you know, I was playing sports, I was playing paintball, I was working out all the time. I was running a business, going to school. I had a girlfriend. I was super social, right? I was doing all of these things, but I thought everyone did that. So I couldn't tell. What I truly wanted to know, was I just being a baby about not being able to handle these things? You know, like, does everyone do this and they can handle it? Or am I going through a lot? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so I told my therapist straight up, I need you to tell me if I'm just being a baby, you know, or if this is a lot. And after learning and talking, he's like, it's a lot. And so then that's when I was able to fix things. And again, so because that was like a test of my manlyhood at the time, right? Like, just suck it up. Everyone does all these energy. I was giving my energy to everyone. That's kind of when the Instagram thing, the friends, cutting out, something had to give. I was spinning all these plates. But once I broke down, dealt with a lot of that, started to come back, I told my therapist same time, I am going to run this business. I'm going to open a second business. I'm going to do all of these things, play paintball, right? And I want to learn how to manage it. There are people that are doing that. I watched the Kevin Hart documentary. Yeah. Dude runs like 16 businesses, you know. How does he manage it here? So I know it can be done. Right. I just started in a mess. So I broke down, just built the foundation, and that's how I'm building up.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just like you're just equipping yourself with the tools to live an amazing life. Like, that's really what it's about, right? Sometimes our mental health is like, sometimes we're in a negative, right? We're like in a -3. We're dealing with a lot of stuff, trauma, mental health conditions, all of this stuff. So we need just to get back to zero. Right. And then once we get back to zero, okay, now how can I optimize my life? How can I live my best, how can I be the best version of me? Yes, you have to go from the negative to the zero and then to the plus. Right. So you have to get there first. And that part is usually the hardest because you're in the absolute trenches, right? Dealing with the worst kind of stuff you can deal with just in the depths of your own mind. Right. But once you get out of that, which is 100% possible with support, help, and guidance and all that stuff that we've been talking about, then you get to zero. You're like, okay, I feel like I'm on level ground again. All right. I know that I want to do all these things. Who can help me? Right. Anyone, a coach, a therapist, doesn't matter, but they're going to equip you with the tools, the skills to manage all of the stuff that's happening. Absolutely. Because even when you feel good, which we do, we're still going to be dealing with stress. Like, you had one of your employees come in because things are happening right now in your business while we're having this conversation. Right. And that's never going to end. Right. Like, having no stress in your life is dead person goals. Correct. That's like, I don't want that. I want stress. Right. I want the uncertainty. I want the peaks and valleys, because that's the beauty of life. But I want it because I feel like I know how to handle it. Right. I mean, if I don't know how, I'll figure it out. Right. Like, that's my goal. That's my plan. And so, amazing. Yeah. Glad you got to this point in your life, man. Yeah. It's made you had a great time. Yeah. That's what, like, it's been a journey, man. And that's my goal now, is I want to continue building. I'm building amazing creative space. Like, I can't wait, end of the year, it'll be
where I want it to be. But I want to build that. I want a little more freedom, like financial freedom, time, really. And then I want to just share this message. Again, it's not because I want to brag or flex about like where I'm at, but the last, again, 6-8 months, like, I'm so happy to wake up. Sometimes like I push myself till I go home and have to go to sleep. But it's like on Christmas, right? Like you want to go to sleep so Christmas will come. Mm-hmm. That's me every night, truthfully, because I can't wait to see what the next day is going to bring. All I'm getting at is I really want that for people. Yeah. Whatever they're doing. And that's why you'll see on the XXV Instagram that I talk a lot about is like making your passion your full-time thing, like bridging that gap. You need a little bit more money so you can stop your 9-to-5 so you can pursue music full-time. Mm-hmm. But how do I get, like, how can I help? Because there's just so many things they have to do. But when they're doing what they want full time, they will feel this way. Yeah. It's amazing.
I agree because I feel the same way.
Absolutely. Great. Good. So, but yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's my next step is spreading this message and helping people. I don't really know how or what space yet, other than to just kind of keep talking about it.
Well, anytime you want to pop on this podcast,
absolutely.
And if we can get maybe some of your other creators on that are doing some good work.
Yeah. We'll definitely find some
and collaborate in that way.
That would be good. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure we can think of something. I mean, especially what you're doing, I think is great. We can come up with something for sure because I got to keep spreading the message and I know you do.
Because people want to hear stories of other people doing the same thing they wish to do. Uh-huh. Right. Because maybe they don't have that mentor or role model in their life. Right. And they're looking for it elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, Michael is doing this. Like, well, we have like a similar situation. Mm-hmm. Like he could do it. I see him doing it. Mm-hmm. I can fucking do it too. Good. We need that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all it is. That's what stories are. Stories are just there to inspire people, and they're real. This is like real people doing real things. Mm-hmm. And like that boy who's like thinking about being a creative or starting a Shopify account or creating his brain is like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, I can do it too. All right, let's go. Yeah. And that's the coolest part because we'll never know.
For sure.
Like, unless the person messages us and like, hey, I listened to episode 147 of the podcast. Right. And I'm doing this because of it. Majority of the time, that doesn't happen. People just listen and they go out and they execute. And that's the coolest thing in the whole world about putting things on a public platform. You have no idea the domino positive effect.
Absolutely.
And that's what gets me up every single morning, fired up like you. Like, I'm like, okay.
Awesome.
Who can we impact that I'll never know about today?
Right. Awesome. Yeah. Again, like, I don't know. You just want to keep getting up and doing what you're supposed to. You're right. So that you just don't know what's going to happen. And I think that's what's cool. Like every opportunity, but I think that's also a little stressful that you have to stay very positive in everything. You know what I'm saying? Because how much can a negative, if I do something negative, what that domino effect that could have. I try not to think about that obviously, but I just try to think about like doing the positive, and it's just the balance, man. And I think life is about balances for sure.
Yeah, you got to try to create harmony. And sometimes it goes this way, sometimes it goes that way. And then, you figure it out on the way.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, amazing. Okay, I got one more question for you.
Got it.
Before we do that, just let people know where they can follow you the best, or if they want to reach out to you directly, where should they go?
I think at Instagram, XXV the label. I run that one. I have my personal, but again, I'm more about spreading the message these days. So people ask me for my Instagram, like even my personal, like, go to XXV.
Yeah, it says
the label
name on the top.
Yeah. So we like that one.
Cool. That's linked in the show notes for those that want to reach out or buy some stuff. My last question is stolen from my favorite podcaster, Tim Ferriss. Okay. So I can't take credit for this question. Okay. But if you were to create a billboard, and on that billboard, millions of people would see it every single day, what would you put on that billboard?
Oh man. That's a really good question. And it's one of those questions that like, I know it until you ask it, honestly, probably be inspired because I have a couple different taglines with XXV and myself. I use, let's create. I like that one. Only progress is one that I started early on, but be inspired. We started, I have a t-shirt even on it that says be inspired on it. Because I want people to be inspired by something. Mm-hmm. Again, that finding that passion, I believe is the key. Once you find it, then you can learn to harness it. And when it doesn't go away, you have more time to harness it, if that makes sense. So doing what you want to do, be inspired to go do that. So be inspired for sure.
Wonderful.
final answer.
Thank you, Michael.
Absolutely. Thank you.
It's great to chat with you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, for real. My first podcast.
Yeah.
So,
you nailed it.
Thank you.
Nailed it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. See you next time.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But above all else, most importantly, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.